Have you ever been judged by the color of your skin before anyone heard you speak? Today I'm telling you a story that will change how you think about turning pain into power. This is about Zara Okafor, a woman who transformed discrimination into determination and bought the very place that rejected her. Picture this: Manhattan's financial district, October morning. The Golden Bean Café, marble counters, $8 lattes, and an atmosphere thick with success. This wasn't just any coffee shop. It was where deals were made and networks were built. Zara Okafor had been coming here every morning for 8 months. At 32, she looked younger, petite, natural hair in a ponytail, usually in comfortable clothes. What people couldn't see was her MIT degree, her 2 sold companies worth $50 million combined, or her spot on Forbes's 30 under 30 list. That Tuesday morning changed everything. Fresh from her jog through Central Park, Zara entered the Golden Bean in her workout gear. The usual buzz of conversation continued, but she felt the familiar weight of evaluating glances. She'd navigated these spaces before. Success had taught her patience with people's assumptions. Marcus Webb, the manager, positioned himself in her path. At 45, he carried himself with borrowed authority, believing the Golden Bean was his kingdom and he its gatekeeper. "Excuse me," Marcus said, loud enough for nearby customers to hear. "I think you're lost." Zara paused, confused. "I'm sorry? This is a private establishment. We cater to a specific clientele." His tone grew aggressive. "I don't think this is the kind of place you're looking for." The cafe quieted. Conversations didn't stop, but volumes dropped as people began watching the interaction unfold. "I'm just here for coffee," Zara said calmly, though her heart raced. "I come here every morning." Marcus laughed harshly. "Look, I don't know what game you're playing, but we both know you can't afford anything on our menu. There's a McDonald's 3 blocks down. That's more your speed." The words hit like physical blows. Around them phones appeared, people recording what was clearly becoming a confrontation. There were several people walking through the crowd, flashing their flashlights around. Then another. "Actually," Zara said, voice steady despite the tremor inside, "I'd like my usual, large oat milk latte with an extra shot and a blueberry scone." "Your usual?" Marcus sneered. "You need to leave. Now. Before I call security." "You're refusing to serve me because of how I look?" Zara asked, her voice carrying clearly. "I'm refusing to serve you because you don't belong here," Marcus replied. "This is a respectable establishment. We have standards." The word standards hung toxic in the air. Everyone understood what Marcus really meant. The silence stretched as dozens of eyes watched, waiting to see how this would unfold. Zara looked around the room. Successful professionals. Educated people who should have known better. Not one spoke up. Not one said a word. "I understand," Zara said finally, quiet but clear. "Thank you for clarifying your policies." She walked to the door with unhurried dignity, refusing to give Marcus or anyone the satisfaction of seeing her run. But once in her Tesla, the composure cracked. She let herself feel the humiliation burning in her chest. The assumption she couldn't afford coffee, the dismissal of her humanity, the silence of everyone who witnessed it. But as tears flowed, something else took shape. Her parents had taught her that every setback was set up for comeback, every closed door an opportunity to build a better one. Dr. Chukwuma Okafor had arrived with nothing but an unrecognized medical degree and determination. Professor Adeze Okafor became Columbia's first black tenured chemistry professor. They'd taught Zara that the world would try to limit her based on others' fears and prejudices. But they'd also taught her she had power to break those boxes, to create spaces where dignity wasn't conditional. An idea formed. Not revenge, transformation. That evening, Zara researched the Golden Bean from her Tribeca loft. Public records revealed Golden Bean Enterprises LLC was struggling despite its polished facade. Multiple loans, razor-thin margins, several discrimination complaints to the city's Human Rights Commission. Marcus's management was driving away revenue through exclusion rather than building it through service. Her phone buzzed. A text from her CFO, Kwame. Saw the video, you okay? The video, Twitter showed 30 seconds titled, Racist Manager Kicks Black Woman Out of NYC Café. 50,000 views and climbing. Climbing. She typed back, I'm fine. Have legal research F&B acquisition opportunities in financial district. Kwame called immediately. Please tell me you're not planning what I think you're planning. Supply and demand, Zara said. They supplied discrimination. Now they'll experience demand for consequences. This isn't about revenge, she continued, looking out at city lights on the Hudson. It's about transformation. Do you know how many people walk into that cafe daily? How many young professionals endure condescending service because they don't fit someone's narrow definition of success? Over the next week, Zara's team worked with precision. Lawyers discovered the Golden Bean violated city ordinances, had outstanding tax liens, was 3 months behind on loans. The parent company wanted out, and Marcus's management made them vulnerable to exactly the acquisition Zara proposed. Research on Marcus revealed a pattern. Fired from 2 previous positions for interpersonal conflicts. Glassdoor reviews mentioning discriminatory behavior and hostile work environment. The Golden Bean wasn't an isolated incident, it was systematic exclusion masquerading as standards. Friday afternoon, 1 week after the incident, Zara's lawyers made their offer. Complete buyout of Golden Bean Enterprises LLC, assumption of all debts, 30-day closing. The owners accepted within 24 hours. 2 weeks after Marcus Webb refused to serve her, Zara walked back into the Golden Bean. This time she wore a tailored navy suit that cost more than Marcus's monthly salary. Louboutin heels clicking authoritatively on marble. Carrying herself with unmistakable confidence of someone who owned the ground she walked on, which, as of 9 a.m. that morning, she literally did. Marcus stood behind the counter, directing staff with characteristic superiority, oblivious that his world was about to change forever. The woman who'd recorded the original incident was there. The video now had 500,000 views. Zara approached slowly, savoring each step. Marcus looked up, confusion flickering across his face. He recognized her, but the context was wrong. She didn't look like the woman he'd ejected. She looked like success. Good morning, Zara said with quiet authority earned from years of board meetings and million-dollar negotiations. I'd like to speak with the manager. Marcus straightened, customer service smile snapping into place. That would be me. How can I help you, Miss Okafor? Zara Okafor. The name meant nothing to him. Men like Marcus rarely learned names of people they dismissed. But the recording woman remembered, fumbling for her phone. What can I do for you, Miss Okafor? I'm here to inform you of changes to your employment status, Zara said, voice carrying through the cafe. As of this morning, I am the new owner of the Golden Bean. The words hung like an unexploded bomb. Marcus blinked, processing slowly. Conversations gradually stopped. As customers realized, they were witnessing something significant. I'm sorry, what? Marcus said, voice cracking. Zara opened her briefcase, withdrawing documents. Ownership transfer papers, filed this morning with Secretary of State. Golden Bean Enterprises LLC has been acquired by Okafor Holdings. I am now your boss. Well, technically I was going to be. Past tense seems more appropriate. Marcus's face cycled through confusion, disbelief, recognition, terror. You can't. Legal? Completely. Profitable? Absolutely. Previous owners were motivated to sell. Zara's smile was blade sharp. When you run a business into the ground through discriminatory practices, you become vulnerable to acquisition. Complete silence now, every person focused on the counter interaction, phones out, recording, broadcasting live. This moment would be viewed millions of times. Think back 2 weeks, Zara continued conversationally but filling the entire space. Remember a young black woman after her morning run? A woman you refused to serve? Told to go to McDonald's because you assumed she couldn't afford $8 lattes? Marcus's face went pale, understanding dawning. That woman was me. When you looked at me that morning, you made judgments based purely on prejudice. You saw skin color, casual clothes, youth, and decided I had no value. She stepped closer, voice dropping to barely above whisper, forcing everyone to lean in. What you couldn't see, never bothered to discover, is that I'm an MIT graduate, with degrees in computer science and business. I've started and sold 2 companies for over $50 million combined. I employ 200 people across 3 states. I've been featured on Entrepreneur magazine, given keynotes at tech conferences worldwide. Marcus opened his mouth, but Zara held up her hand. Amber finished simply. I'm not finished. You also couldn't see that I'd been coming here every morning for 8 months, spent thousands of dollars, brought clients for meetings, recommended this place to colleagues. Until 2 weeks ago, I was one of your most loyal customers. She produced another document. Employment termination notice. Effective immediately. Final paycheck mailed within 30 days, as required by law. You can't fire me, Marcus exploded, composure finally cracking. This is revenge. This is illegal. Actually, Marcus, this is capitalism, Zara replied calmly. You provided poor customer service, created hostile environment, cost this business significant revenue through discriminatory practices. We call that grounds for termination. She turned to other employees, watching with horror and fascination. To the rest of the staff, your jobs are secure. We'll be expanding our team, implementing new training focused on inclusive customer service. Anyone interested in management opportunities should see me after this transition. This is about race, Marcus sputtered, face red with rage. Reverse discrimination. This is about competence, Zara said evenly. About treating all customers with respect regardless of appearance. About building business that succeeds because it values every person walking through that door. She gestured around the space. Look at this place. Beautiful space, great location, excellent coffee. This should be the most successful cafe in the financial district. Instead, it's struggling because you've created an environment where people don't feel welcome unless they meet your narrow definition of acceptability. I was protecting the brand, maintaining standards. Whose standards? Who decided respect is conditional on appearance? That dignity must be earned instead of given freely. The question echoed through silent space. Several customers nodded, recognition in their eyes. Here's what happens next, Zara continued businesslike. Security escorts you out, personal items packed and delivered. And Marcus? I want you to think about this moment every time you're tempted to judge someone by appearance. Remember that the person you dismiss today might have power to change your life tomorrow. Marcus stood frozen, finally understanding the full scope. Then he untied his apron, threw it on the counter, walked toward the door. At the exit, he turned back. This isn't over, Zara smiled. Marcus, for you it is. But for this cafe, this community, everyone who's been made to feel less than human because of others' prejudices. This is just the beginning. As the door closed, the cafe erupted in applause. Customers who'd witnessed the original incident, employees who'd worked under discriminatory management, strangers who'd witnessed justice, they all stood and clapped. Zara stepped onto a chair so everyone could see her clearly. What happened 2 weeks ago wasn't just about me, she began over the applause. It was about all of us. About the kind of society we want, the businesses we support, the world we build for our children. Complete silence again, hanging on every word. I could have walked away that morning. Found another cafe, another place for my money. But walking away doesn't solve problems. It moves them elsewhere. The next person Marcus encountered would have faced the same treatment. She made eye contact with as many people as possible. Change doesn't happen when we walk away. Change happens when we stand up, when we use whatever power we have to make things better. Today I used financial power, but each of you has power too. The power to speak up against injustice, to support businesses treating all people with dignity, To refuse silence when someone's being dehumanized before you. A woman raised her hand. What are you doing with the cafe now? Transforming it. New policies, training, management structure, making this a place where every person knows they're welcome, regardless of race, age, religion, sexual orientation, or bank account balance. Proving businesses can be both profitable and equitable. That treating people with respect isn't just morally right, it's good for bottom line. That diversity isn't burden, but strength. Another customer called out, "What about people who can't afford $8 lattes?" Great question. Starting Monday, we're implementing pay-it-forward programs. Customers can purchase coffee for others who might not afford it. We're partnering with community organizations for job training and employment opportunities. Thunderous applause. Zara held up her hand once more. Every day, each of us can make someone's life better or worse. We can see the best in people, or assume the worst. Include or exclude. Lift up or tear down. Marcus Webb made his choice 2 weeks ago. Today I made mine. Tomorrow you'll make yours. The question is, what kind of world do you want to help create? As Zara stepped down, the cafe erupted again, but she also heard something else. Conversations starting, people introducing themselves, the sound of community beginning to form. The transformation of the Golden Bean had begun. 3 months later, the cafe had become more than a business. It had become a symbol. The story had spread nationwide, inspiring similar initiatives. Monthly community forums discussed inclusion and equity. The Pay It Forward program had expanded to include job training, interview clothes, small business loans. But for Zara, the most meaningful change was simpler. Every morning she saw people of all backgrounds sitting together, talking, laughing, building connections across dividing lines. One morning, a young black woman entered wearing hoodie and jeans, hair in messy bun, looking like she'd finished working out. For a moment, Zara saw herself from 3 months ago. Young, casual, vulnerable to assumptions. Instead of suspicion or judgment, the woman was greeted with warm smiles, asked about her day, offered recommendations. She ordered confidently, paid with her phone, found a seat where strangers welcomed her into conversation about local politics. Zara watched with deep satisfaction. This was why she'd bought the cafe. Why she'd chosen transformation over revenge, inclusion over exclusion, hope over bitterness. As the young woman laughed with her new friends, Zara remembered her father's words. The world will try to make you small, but you have the power to make it bigger. She had taken humiliation and transformed it into something powerful, used privilege and resources not just to succeed, but to create opportunities for others. Proven businesses could be both profitable and purposeful. Success measured not just in dollars but in lives changed and communities strengthened. Most importantly, she'd shown every ending could be a new beginning. Every moment of darkness contained seeds of light, and every person, even those who wronged us, had potential for redemption. This story isn't just about Zara's triumph over discrimination. It's about the power each of us has to create change. You might not have millions to buy a cafe, but you have something equally powerful, the ability to choose how you respond to injustice, how you treat people around you, what kind of world you help create with daily actions. Maybe you're the person who speaks up against unfairness. Maybe you're the business owner creating inclusive policies. Maybe you're the customer supporting businesses that treat all people with dignity. Maybe you have courage to examine your own biases and work to become better. We all have power to transform our corner of the world. We can turn pain into progress, choose compassion over indifference, build bridges instead of walls. Zara saw injustice and decided to act. She could have let humiliation define her, make her bitter or defeated. Instead, she chose to let it motivate, creating something beautiful. What will you choose to do with your power? What will you do when you witness injustice? How will you use your voice, resources, influence to make the world better? Your answer will determine not just your story, but the stories of everyone whose lives you touch. Will you be a force for positive change, or let opportunities for transformation pass by. The choice is yours, the power is in your hands, the time is now. If this story inspired you, if it made you think about your power to create change, hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Remember, every great change started with someone who decided things didn't have to stay the same. Someone who chose to be brave, bold, to be the change they wanted to see. That someone could be you. Until next time, keep believing in the power of transformation, and never underestimate what you can accomplish when you turn pain into purpose. 6 months after Zara Okafor transformed the Golden Bean from a place of exclusion into a beacon of inclusion, the ripple effects of that October morning had spread far beyond the marble counters of one Manhattan cafe. The video of Marcus Webb denying Zara service had been viewed over 2 million times, sparking a nationwide conversation about unconscious bias in business. But more importantly, it had inspired action. Across the country, business owners were implementing new training programs, customers were demanding accountability, and communities were refusing to accept discrimination as the price of maintaining standards. On this particular morning, Zara stood behind the same counter where Marcus had once wielded his prejudice like a weapon. But now she was training Amara Thompson, the young woman who had become not just the assistant manager, but a symbol of the cafe's new direction. At 24, Amara represented everything the Golden Bean now stood for. Potential recognized, opportunity given, talent nurtured regardless of background. Ms. Okafor, Amara said, reviewing the morning reports. The Community Investment Fund has reached its target. We've now provided startup capital for 12 local businesses owned by people of color and women. Zara smiled, remembering how Marcus had assumed she couldn't afford an $8 latte. Now that same cafe was generating enough profit to fund dreams across the community. What's the success rate? 11 of the 12 are exceeding their first quarter projections. The 12th is a food truck that's already talking about opening a brick-and-mortar location. This was the real victory. Not just the moment she'd purchased the cafe, but what that purchase had enabled. Every dollar spent at the Golden Bean now circulated through the community, creating opportunities that would have been unimaginable under Marcus's management. A familiar figure caught Zara's attention near the entrance. Detective Ray Valdez, the NYPD officer who had investigated the discrimination complaints against the old management, had become a regular customer. More significantly, he'd become an advocate for change within his own department, using his experience at the Golden Bean to push for bias training in law enforcement. "Morning, Ms. Okafor," Ray said, approaching the counter. "I wanted to let you know. The department approved our proposal. We're implementing the same unconscious bias training you use here for all new recruits." "That's incredible news, Ray. How did you convince them?" Ray gestured around the bustling cafe. "I brought the police chief here 3 weeks ago. He saw what transformation looks like when people commit to it. When he watched a former gang member teaching a retired banker how to use our job training app, something clicked." This was the conversation Zara had been hoping for since day one. The Golden Bean had become more than a cafe. It had become a laboratory for social change, proving that businesses could be profitable while addressing systemic inequalities. The morning rush brought its usual mix of customers, but the demographic had shifted dramatically since the transformation. Where Marcus had cultivated a homogeneous clientele of wealthy white professionals, Zara had created space for the actual diversity of New York City. Investment bankers sat next to public school teachers. Tech entrepreneurs shared tables with social workers. Recent immigrants practiced English with native speakers who offered tutoring during their lunch breaks. "Excuse me, are you Zara Okafor?" Zara turned to see a middle-aged black woman in a business suit, her expression mixing nervousness with determination. "Yes, I am. My name is Dr. Patricia Williams. I run a medical practice in Harlem. I saw your story, and it inspired me to do something I've been thinking about for years." "What's that?" "I'm opening a satellite clinic in this neighborhood. The financial district has plenty of urgent care centers for minor injuries, but nowhere for preventive care for service workers, the people who clean these buildings, work in food service, keep this area running but can't afford private healthcare." Dr. Williams paused, gathering courage. "I was wondering if you'd consider partnering with me, not financially but strategically. Your cafe has become a community hub. I'd love to offer basic health screenings here 1 day a week, connect people with resources they need." Zara felt the familiar thrill of possibility. This was exactly what she'd envisioned, the Golden Bean as a catalyst for broader community development. "Dr. Williams, I'd be honored to partner with you. Let's schedule a meeting to discuss how we can make this work." As Dr. Williams left with a huge smile and Amara's business card, Zara reflected on how completely the cafe's purpose had transformed. Marcus had seen his role as keeping people out. Zara had reimagined it as bringing people together. The lunch hour brought another surprise visitor. Through the window, Zara saw Marcus Webb approaching. But this Marcus looked different from the man who'd been escorted out 6 months ago. His expensive suit had been replaced with simple khakis and a polo shirt bearing the logo of the Queens Community Center where he now worked. "Mrs. Okafor," Marcus said quietly as he reached the counter, "I hope it's okay that I'm here." "Of course, Marcus, how are you?" "Better, really better." His voice carried a humility that had been completely absent during his tenure as manager. "I wanted to tell you about something that happened yesterday." Marcus glanced around the transformed space. Walls now displaying artwork from local artists of all backgrounds, the community board announcing everything from ESL classes to small business loans, customers representing the beautiful diversity of New York. A young black woman came into the community center looking for help with her resume. 6 months ago I would have made assumptions about her education, her qualifications, her potential, but because of what you taught me, because of how you responded to my ignorance, I listened instead." He paused, emotion creeping into his voice. "She's a recent Howard University graduate with a degree in social work. She was struggling to find opportunities because she didn't have the right connections, the right network. Yesterday, I was able to connect her with 3 different organizations looking for exactly her skills." "That's wonderful, Marcus. But here's the thing. Helping her succeed felt better than any power trip I ever had as manager here. When you give people opportunities instead of obstacles, when you see their potential instead of their limitations, it changes you." This was the transformation Zara had hoped for, but never demanded. Marcus hadn't just lost a job. He'd found a purpose. "There's something else," Marcus continued. "The community center is expanding its job placement program. We're working with 15 local businesses now to create pathways for people who might not have traditional backgrounds but have incredible potential. I think about that every day, how many people I dismissed, how many opportunities I destroyed with my prejudices. Marcus, what you're doing now matters more than what you did then. Growth requires acknowledging our mistakes, but it's defined by our actions moving forward." As Marcus left, Amara approached Zara with a question that had become routine, but never lost its significance. "Miss Okafor, we have 3 more businesses asking about replicating our model in their locations. Should I set up calls?" The Golden Bean had become a case study. Business schools were teaching courses on the Okafor model, the integration of social equity with profit maximization. Consulting firms were helping other companies implement similar transformations. The cafe where Zara had been denied service was now the epicenter of a movement. But as Zara looked around the space that had once excluded her, she was most proud of the simplest changes. The barista currently serving customers was Jalen, a 19-year-old who'd aged out of foster care and found not just employment but mentorship through the cafe's programs. The woman cleaning tables was Maria, an undocumented immigrant who was using her wages to pay for night school while her children attended the free childcare program Zara had established in the cafe's back room. Every person in the space had a story. Every story had been touched by the decision Zara made that October morning to transform pain into purpose. The afternoon brought one final surprise: a group of high school students on a field trip. Their teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, had brought them to see what social entrepreneurship looked like in practice. "This cafe teaches us that business can be a force for justice," she explained to her students. When Miss Okafor was denied service because of her skin color, she could have responded with anger or bitterness. Instead, she chose to create something better. One student raised her hand. But how do we know this actually works? How do we know it's not just good publicity? Zara stepped forward. That's an excellent question. Let me show you the numbers. She pulled up the cafe's financial dashboard on the tablet behind the counter. 6 months ago, this cafe was barely profitable. We were losing customers, had high employee turnover, and faced multiple discrimination lawsuits. Today, our revenue is up 40%. We have a waiting list of people who want to work here, and we've received 0 discrimination complaints. More importantly, she continued, we've created 12 jobs, funded 15 small businesses, provided free job training to over 100 people, and partnered with local organizations to address healthcare, education, and housing needs in this community. The students looked impressed, but another hand went up. What advice would you give to someone our age who faces discrimination? Zara thought carefully before answering. First, document it. Record it if you can. Report it when appropriate. Second, don't let other people's limitations define your potential. The person who discriminates against you doesn't determine your worth. Third, when you gain power, and you will gain power, use it to make sure the next generation doesn't face what you face. As the students left, chattering excitedly about their own potential to create change, Zara felt the full weight of what had been accomplished. The golden bean had become proof that transformation was possible, that businesses could be both profitable and purposeful, that individual action could create systemic change. But most importantly, it had become a place where skin color determined nothing except the beautiful diversity of perspectives around each table, where potential was recognized regardless of background, where dignity was a given, not something to be earned. The cafe that had once denied Zara's service had become the cafe where everyone belonged, and that transformation had rippled outward, changing not just a business, but a community, and ultimately hundreds of individual lives. The revolution had started with an $8 latte. It continued with every customer served, every opportunity created, every person who walked through the doors and discovered their potential reflected back at them. Marcus Webb had unknowingly started something he never could have imagined. By denying Zara's service for her skin color, he had set in motion a chain of events that would transform his city, his industry, and ultimately, himself. That was the true power of turning pain into purpose. It didn't just change you, it changed everything.